Welcome, fellow horror hounds, and welcome to the latest episode of Talk and Stalk, your unholy home for horror. I'm your host, Barry, and today's podcast is really just going to be me talking about a couple of horror films I'm very much excited for, one of which is out later this year in October, I believe, and the other film is actually released, its release date is scheduled for January 2022. Of course, this is all subject to change due to the situation that we're in, I guess. But them two films are Halloween Kills and Scream, which is actually the fifth film in the franchise, but it's simply being given the title of Scream. Now, 2018's Halloween, I liked it. I certainly had some issues with it. But the Halloween franchise has very much kind of been a rocky road over the years. But I thought that Halloween 2018 was the best Halloween movie in a long time. Now, admittedly, that's not actually saying that much. This was a Blumhouse film that proved to be... It went down well with most fans and critics, and it certainly did very well at the box office. I believe it's actually the highest grossing slasher movie of all time. And upon release, it wasn't long until it was actually announced that there were going to be two more Halloween films. That basically, Halloween 2018 was the first film in what was planned to be a new trilogy. And Halloween Kills, we've had a trailer. It was supposed to be out October last year. But obviously, due to the lockdown, the situation we're in, the film has been put back by a whole year. Now, from what I've seen of this film thus far, I've really liked the trailers they've put out. Obviously, nostalgia is going to play a big part in this film, much like Halloween 2018, which obviously it omitted the sequels, but at the same time, it kind of wryly made reference to them. It was a film that, set 40 years after the original. All of the sequels were ignored. But for the Halloween fans out there, there were little nods here and there, and certainly it paid homage to the original film. You could probably say it sometimes bashed you across the head with some of these homages and whatever. And I think that's probably certainly going to be the case with Halloween Kills. Now, John Carpenter, who of course directed the 1978 classic Halloween, has actually seen this film, and the movie has received his seal of approval. He's given this film a big thumbs up. He seems to think that most Halloween fans are going to love this. He calls it a quintessential slasher film. Now, I realise that at the end of the day, John Carpenter's attached his name to this film. They're there to promote the film. They're not going to criticise the film before it comes out. They need to get as many people watching it as they possibly can. But I also realise that John Carpenter isn't exactly the easiest man to please. John Carpenter, he shoots from the hip. If he doesn't like something, he pretty much says it. What they've basically promised us in Halloween Kills is a film with a high body count. Michael Myers is probably going to be at his most brutal that we've ever seen him. Of course, that is excluding the 2007 Rob Zombie directed film and its sequel. So we can expect a high body count. We can expect some gore, and Michael Myers just being the killing machine that he is. Now, with Halloween 2018, obviously it marked a big moment for Halloween fans. Jamie Lee Curtis was back on board, giving us a new generation as well. She's got a daughter, she's got a grandchild. Now the question is Laurie Strode going to survive the next film? Is she going to be killed off in the final film? I quite like it when risks are taken, in all honesty. I mean, Halloween Resurrection, which was bad, pretty damn bad. I mean, ultimately it was unnecessary because I think Halloween H2O had a great finale. She finally beheaded Michael Myers. But Mustafa Akkad, the financier, big supporter of Michael Myers, had always said that he would never ever want to see Michael Myers killed on screen. So we had Halloween Resurrection, which came out 4 years later, which completely butchers what Halloween H2O set up, the end of a franchise, being decapitated, and they give us this bullshit story, of a paramedic being his larynx being crushed, and obviously it was him in the mask and costume, and just basically a huge amount of BS to set up for the next film. Her death in Halloween Resurrection, which in a way you could say was probably a long time coming, was just flat. Just very disappointing. Now, I'm one of these people that feels as though, to be honest, I don't like it when it's played safe all the time. I think sometimes risks should be taken. Risks can sometimes pay off, sometimes they can't. And I think there's always the risk of fan backlash. I can't believe you did this, I can't believe you did that, and whatever. And I've always been open to the idea of Laurie Strode being killed off. I've always been open to that idea, if done correctly. Halloween Resurrection did not do it correctly. I mean, it was very much a by-the-numbers slasher flick. I don't actually hate the film, it just ain't good. It's just, I don't think Halloween Resurrection is any worse than some of the slasher flicks that we got in the early 80s, you know, very much during the golden age. So, yeah, with this film, I mean, yeah, Laurie Strode's back on board, daughter, granddaughter. I think one of the criticisms I had for Halloween 2018 was some of the humour, the inclusion of some of the humour, which I really didn't care for, in all honesty. Yeah, they're just forced humour. And also, there was a little subplot in the movie that was kind of, I suppose, an interesting kind of unique take, something that we'd not seen before. I'm not going to talk about what, in case people haven't seen it, but there was a certain subplot in the movie that I really didn't care for, to be honest, resulting in a death that actually felt really out of place in the film for me. It felt more akin to a Friday the 13th film, not a Halloween film. So I thought Halloween 2018 overall was actually quite good. With Halloween Kills, I mean, to be honest, it seems like they're going all guns blazing for this film. I think the trailer's been really good. We're obviously getting Tommy Doyle back. Tommy Doyle was obviously the young boy that claimed the boogeyman was after him, and Laurie Strode was babysitting him in the original 1978 film. I believe we're actually getting, her name is actually escaping me at the moment, Lindsay Wallace as well, actually played by the original actress as well. We're also getting Charles Cyphers back, who played Sheriff Lee Brackett in the original Halloween, and he did actually appear in Halloween 2 as well. I didn't realise he was even still alive. I don't know how old he is now. You know, Halloween was 78, but Charles Cyphers, again, we don't really know how large of a role he's got. So they're actually bringing back characters from the original movie, which certainly is going to play a lot into nostalgia. You know, this is something that the fans are very supportive of, to see them characters, you know, from that original movie. I just don't want this film to bash you across the head from start to finish with nostalgia. I want this to be a really good slasher flick in its own right. I mean, for me, the 1978 Halloween, you can't really top it. You know, that movie was very reliant on suspense, atmosphere. It has a very low body count. Michael Myers actually spends the vast majority of the film stalking his victims. Me personally, I would love to see that. I would love to see if that spirit could possibly be recaptured. I mean, the original film was obviously very low budget. They had very little money to work with. And what John Carpenter did was create a very sleek, effective horror movie. Obviously, with Halloween 2018, I mean, the body count is much higher. You know, there's some gore. But overall, it was good. Like I said, far from perfect, had some issues with it. But I thought it was certainly kind of a step in the right direction for the Halloween franchise. So I'm very excited for Halloween Kills. You know, we've got... I forgot his name now. Jude Courtney, that's actually playing Michael Myers again, who I actually thought did a great job in Halloween 2018. He really brought that kind of physicality to the role. You know, Nick Castle, the original Michael Myers, was great, but obviously, you know, he's I think he's really too old to be playing that role now. You know, he actually did have a cameo, if you will, in Halloween 2018. The scene in which Michael Myers actually gets the mask out of the trunk and puts the mask on, that kind of cool shot, was actually Nick Castle. That was his one moment in the movie. So I think with Halloween Kills, I'm expecting a good slasher film. I'm expecting a film that I want it to take some risks. Okay, now I've got a funny feeling they probably won't. That all three women, Laurie and her daughter and granddaughter, may very well survive the movie. If any of them's going to be killed off, it probably will be in the third film. So at the end of the day, it's not going to make or break the film for me. It's Halloween. I mean, Halloween is, as I said, a very uneven, rocky road, a franchise. It's had a lot of highs and a lot of, well, not a lot of highs, actually, more lows than highs. Because I don't really feel, aside from maybe Halloween 2 in 81, I don't really feel like any of the sequels have truly come close to what the original film did. So, yeah. So, the other film that I really want to talk about now, this is the film that I'm probably most excited for. The last movie in this franchise was released back in 2011. And, of course, directed by Wes Craven, who passed away in 2015. And since then, this franchise has very much been in limbo. And that's Scream, which is actually Scream 5. But I'm not sure if it's going to confuse many people. I've already heard some people say, oh, is this a remake? It's just called Scream. No, this is actually Scream 5. But much like 2018's Halloween, they just decided to give it the same title as the original movie. It's been a case of like, when and if are we ever going to get a Scream film, another Scream film? Wes Craven's passing. Kevin Williamson obviously wrote the screenplays for Scream, Scream 2 and Scream 4. I actually thought Scream 4 was actually an improvement on Scream 3, in all honesty. Scream 3 to me was the weakest of the franchise. It's still a fun slasher flick, but it kind of felt like Scream 3 was basically, it was starting to become a parody. It was becoming the kind of film that the first two films wryly mocked. So this is, I'm very excited. There's a level of apprehension. This is going to be a different studio. It's not Dimension Films anymore. This is actually Spyglass, who have actually churned out some good films over the years. Obviously, this is the first film to not be directed by Wes Craven. I believe Kevin Williamson, it's not his screenplay that's being written, but Kevin Williamson is actually involved in some capacity. I believe he might actually be a producer. Now, Kevin Williamson did actually write screenplays for Scream 4, 5 and 6. But of course, them screenplays have basically been put aside, with Wes Craven's passing. But there was actually the intention for 6 Scream films. Now, we'll have to see how Scream turns out. But with the Scream franchise, the first movie is just great. It's a film that reinvented and revived very successfully the slasher genre for the 90s, quickly becoming the highest grossing slasher film of all time. It's a film that pays homage. It's a love letter to their movies, to kind of the golden age of horror. And it was so incredibly well written. Wes Craven did a great job directing. Kevin Williamson, fantastic screenplay. And I actually thought Scream 2 was a sequel that very much holds up to the first film. I think it's pretty much up there, right with it. Now, Scream 4 came out. Obviously, there was a big gap between 2000 and 2011. Scream 4 came out. And Scream 4, while it did quite well at the box office, it didn't make anywhere near as much money as they'd have hoped. It was the only film in the franchise to make less than $100 million. Like I said, it did okay, but it just didn't do as well. It underperformed. So there's been that whole kind of like, with Wes Craven's passing, because the 4th film didn't really do that well at the box office, is there still a demand for Scream? Well, I think there definitely is. Scream has a big, loyal fan following. We've got, obviously, a whole new cast for this film, but, of course, we've got the original 3 members. We've got David Arquette in there, we've got Courtney Cox, and we've got Neve Campbell. All 3 of these have officially signed on to the movie, which I think, to be honest, that was inevitable. Courtney Cox and David Arquette signed on first, and then it was kind of like, is Neve Campbell... It was never a question on my mind. I always kind of knew that Neve Campbell's got to... I just can't envision a Scream film without Neve Campbell. Now, the question is, this is what I kind of want to see with Scream, okay? I would like to see, because now I know this is a sequel, softer reboot, if you will, some people are calling it. To me, this is actually a sequel, but it's going to basically follow alongside a new generation. So you've got the original 3 cast members in there. but new characters, I feel, are going to become central to the plot. Now, again, like with Halloween, I would like some risks to be taken. I also want a film that, what Scream did was blend horror with humour so incredibly well. Scream had a lot of humour in there. Nothing was forced. There was a very organic feel to it. The characters were great. Everyone played their roles to perfection. But it was a film that wasn't over-reliant on humour. It was clever when it needed to be. And it was a good murder mystery. It was a good whodunit. But there was also a sense of dread. I mean, you look back to the opening scene in Scream, it was great. It was very much a homage to 1979's When a Stranger Calls. There was a sense of dread. There was a sense of menace. Scream 2 had that. It had its moments of actual horror. The opening murder in the cinema, I thought was great, really quite harrowing. It was like, how can we possibly come close to the opening of the first Scream? And I think they did a really good job with the opening in Scream 2. The problem I had with Scream 3, I'm going to say especially, which, as I say, wasn't written by Kevin Williamson, the tone becomes somewhat lighter. The franchise become a little too meta, I think, for its own good. Now, don't get me wrong, I really appreciated some of these cameos and that we had, and some of these references. They really were quite clever, but it really did start to become a little bit of a satire at times. It had its moments with Scream 3, with the revelation at the end of the movie, and that it certainly had its darker moments in that. But I want this new Scream film to have that air of menace to it. I'm expecting humour. I'm expecting there to be, hopefully, a sharp script. But I don't want the film to be over-reliant on meta, referencing a film every few minutes. Scream did a great job with it. Now, I'll admit there's a hell of a lot of references in Scream, but it does a really good job with it. But there's only so many times you can do that before, Scream was fresh. So I want I want it to be a murder mystery. Obviously, it's going to be a whodunit. We're not going to know who Ghostface is. I don't want it to overcomplicate matters either. I'm hearing some rumblings, some rumours. Some people are saying, there could be 3 killers in this film. I don't want it to really get too complex. Now, as Neve Campbell's in the film, obviously, she can become central to the plot, I'd imagine, in a degree. But as I said, I want some risks to be taken. I'm all for having Dewey or Gale killed off in this film. Or even Sidney. Now, I know there's going to be people that are going to hate me for saying that. Now, ideally, I'd rather Dewey or Gale be killed off than Sidney. Okay, now, this isn't going to make or break the film for me. Okay, I'm not going to dislike the film because they don't get killed or whatever. But just an ideal situation. Dewey is harder to kill than Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees put together. I mean, he's one of the most popular characters in the franchise. It's like they've been a bit worried to kill him off. In the original script of Scream, he was supposed to be killed off, but of course he proved to be too popular of a character. They had him survive. Pretty much the same thing happened with Scream 2. He's almost impossible to kill. I think since the fan backlash with Randy's death in Scream 2, obviously Randy was a popular character. He was killed off, which was a bit of a gut punch to the audience. But I commend him for doing that. I commend him for taking that risk. Wes Craven even got hate mail for killing him off, which I think is the only reason we got Randy back in a cameo, an extended cameo, if you will, in Scream 3 via videotape, because of the hate that Wes Craven got for making that happen. I'm expecting one of them 3 to be killed. I really am. I'm not going to lie. In Scream 4, I thought one of them was going to get killed. My money would have been on Gale. But, as I said, it's not going to make or break the film for me. The problem is when you have the same characters survive film after film after film, it runs the risk of becoming formulaic, predictable. I want this film to throw a twist out there. I want it to throw some gut punches, or at least a gut punch, some twists. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to it. It's been so long since we've had the Ghostface costume on screen. I mean, I know there was a third Scream series, which was essentially a reboot that ran for 6 episodes, which I've not really heard that good things about. I haven't really had any interest in watching it. I thought the first 2 seasons of Scream were okay. They were so. I found a little bit of a chore to get through, especially with the first season, in all honesty. But to actually just see Scream, not the TV series, to see the movie franchise make its big comeback. Now, I'm kind of hoping that they don't feel as though, the directors, who, by the way, directed Ready or Not, which I thought was a really good, fun movie. It's a film that didn't take itself too seriously at times. It had a lot of fun with the conventions. It was just a good, entertaining, fun horror film. I would ideally like Scream to be a movie that's a little darker than that. Like I said, I don't want this film to just be an out-and-out comedy. And I really don't feel like it's going to be. I'm also kind of worried that they won't kill off one of the main characters because it could hinder the legacy of Wes Craven. Wes Craven, obviously, and Williamson, they created and built up these characters and so forth, and by killing them off, they're disrespecting Wes Craven or whatever. I don't want that to be kind of the thought process of this. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And I mean, there's another film I'd like to quickly talk about that is released in October. It was supposed to be out in April. Really looking forward to it. It's a psychological horror film being directed by Edgar Wright, the director of, obviously, Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, Baby Driver. This is actually his first out-and-out horror film, called Last Night in Soho, starring Matt Smith, Anya Taylor-Joy. Anyone that knows me knows I'm a big fan of psychological horror. I love movies that are slow-burning, very kind of cerebral films. Films that kind of probe the recesses of the mind. And from the sound of things, Last Night in Soho could very well be one of them movies. I believe there's definite echoes of 1973's Don't Look Now and 1965's Repulsion, which are actually 2 of the best psychological horror films of all time, in my opinion. Yeah, it's been pushed back to October anyway. So yeah, it's, from what I know, Anya Taylor-Joy, I believe she goes back to the 1960s. I don't really know too many plot details, in all fairness. I mean, they definitely had me sold at the mere mention of Don't Look Now and Repulsion are proving to be an inspiration for this film. And Edgar Wright is a great director. Yeah, looking forward to that. And pretty much it. That's all I really wanted to talk about today. Just kind of some of my expectations and for the horror films that I'm really looking forward to this year and very early next year. Needless to say, there's plenty more horror films coming out. But I just wanted to try and make this podcast as short, as sweet as possible. So yeah, thanks to everyone for listening, and I'll be back to haunt you, torment you sometime soon. Take care.